All right, welcome to Objective 6.4. So I'm going to just jump right into this as we carry on with our Module 6. So this objective is apply pacing and compass to navigate an area. So this is more of an activity that I want you guys to do in your workbooks. And then come back to the discussion and discuss that as well. So the first thing is compass reading. So their compasses are based on the magnetic north. And that is kind of a fun thing to deal with, and we're going to get into a little bit more of the detail behind compass reading. Um, really, nowadays, the time you're actually going to use a compass is when you are working in the bush. Now, it sounds crazy for those of us who've grown up in the city. We're like, why would I ever need a compass? Like, I can see the sun, I can see the mountains. Here in Calgary, if you're born and raised here, if you can see the mountains, you know which way's west. You have your cell phone, you can pull it out. You got GPS, tells us everything. In surveying, yeah, we can go out in the rural areas and use GPS. But once you hit a forest, that GPS doesn't work so well anymore. So then you actually do pull out a compass. And if you talk to anybody who does work in the field, up in the patch, or in any kind of forestry, they are all saying, yeah, I pull out a compass. I keep a compass with me. So it is actually important. So we still use it to this day. So the angles on a compass are in degrees. Very rarely would you ever see it in any other kind. The red needle, so the red one in this picture, it points towards the magnetic north. So wherever that is, it's always going to the north, not to the south, to the north. The white will go to the south. The red arrow is used to correct for magnetic declination. So this is the red arrow, and it says it will be discussed later in this presentation. That comes up actually next in one of the next two objectives. So what I suggest how you use it is you take your compass and you point it in the direction that you're facing. Then read the red needle's angle. So this is the red needle, you're going to read that angle. Now you know what your azimuth is. Okay, so it's the azimuth from the north, from the magnetic north. So it might take you a little bit, wherever you are, figure out where north is and see if it makes sense. Does it make sense how I turn and look at it? If I point to the east, then I should be at 90 degrees. If the arrow is pointing at 270, then you know you're backwards. So then it's the way you're holding the compass versus like where you're reading it. So there's just a couple things to take a note with compass reading. We will discuss this whole magnetic declination stuff soon. So don't stress out too much about it. If you are going to go ahead and do the compass and pacing activity right away before you get into the next objectives, that is fine. You can still do this without having to do that, without having that knowledge of the magnetic declination. In fact, in the classroom, you would be doing it without knowledge of the magnetic declination because I try to use it as a lead-in to information. So there's that. There's also the fact that you can use your cell phone. There's digital versions of that. Every app is a little bit different. So just make sure that you understand how to use it before jumping in so you understand. Pacing. Well, everybody has their own way of dealing with pacing. I like to figure out how large is one pace. So there are other ways of measuring it, which is kind of the inverse of that, which is over a certain distance, like how many paces do you need? So what you're going to be doing in my class is you're going to be measuring out a long distance on the ground. And this is, like I suggest, like 15 meters. If you can't do that because you don't have a measuring tape that long, or something measured that long, then you'll have to try something different. But even if you use two parking spots in a parking lot, that will work too. It's not 15 meters, but gives you a good enough distance. Then you're going to find a flat area and you're going to find a slope. So there's going to be three measurements that you're making. I want you to walk down the distance and count your steps. So you want to see how many steps does it take to go the distance that you've laid out on the ground. And then you're going to do it a few times so that you can take an average. And then on the slope, I want you to separate uphill and downhill. If you've ever done any hiking, you know that the uphill versus the downhill seems to be a different kind of exertion and either faster or slower, whichever way you're going. So generally speaking, the uphill has larger steps and the downhill actually has smaller steps, but sometimes it's the opposite, so it depends on who you are. Um, so if you do that, then that allows you to judge as well when you are pacing. If you're going pacing up a hill, you know how big your steps are. Then I want you to take the number of paces that you've taken for each of these all separately and divide it by the distance you walked. So if you did, let's say you did 10 meters and you walked back and forth along that 10 meters 10 times. So now you have 100. So you'll have all of that 100 paces or that 100 meters, how many paces did you do? And then you look at how large that pace was, okay? So that is, you'll figure out that one pace is 10 meters, or not 10 meters, but like 1 meter, or maybe 1.1 if you have long legs, or it could be 0.75 meters. But that's how you would calculate your pacing. So there is an activity, like I said in the book. I suggest you do it if you can get access to like a measuring tape and try to mark it out on the ground, and make sure you give it a shot to do up and downhill as well. Take advantage of any good weather that you can while we're asynchronous here, and you can give that a try. So that is all for compass measurements and pacing.